Welcome. This is Meet the Candidates on BCTV. I'm your host, Olga Peters, and I would like to welcome our next candidate for this series, Wayne Vernon Estey. Welcome, Wayne.
Hi, Olga. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure been chatting with you before the show, and you make me very at ease. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Wayne. So you are running on the Democratic ticket for Vermont State Senate.
Right.
Now, as I understand this is your first Vermont campaign.
It is. I never intended to run for Senate or be any more involved in government service than I have for the last 35 years. When I retired, I thought I would read all the books that I have not read and sort my screws from my bolts. And one day I was looking at my watch and said, oh my goodness, it's 14 minutes until Jeopardy comes on.
Oh, that's a sign.
I need to get a job. So I looked around, taught at Mount Snow Academy, found a job as a Dover zoning administrator and health officer, and okay, still got some free time, too much free time. What else is going on?
And that's when you became a representative town meeting member.
Right. And that was a tough race, 13 candidates for 16 positions. So I won handily, I like to think. And that's not a full-time. I am on the Finance Committee. That meets regularly. I have looked at some of the other committees, the Energy Committee, and again, they meet periodically.
So you spent most of your professional life working for the state of Connecticut.
Right.
And you are also working for the municipality of Dover right now.
Right.
What made you decide to run for Senate?
Well, I picked Vermont to live in. And I could have, when I retired, I could have gone anywhere. I mean, I really did think about a low tax state. I didn't want to live in any of those states. Low taxes, low government services. I looked at Pennsylvania, I looked at San Juan, I looked at Barcelona, and all the options. But we had visited Vermont for a long time. It's close enough to my grandchildren in Connecticut, so Vermont was the right place, and haven't made a mistake. People ask me, well, why do you like Vermont? Why do you live here? It's hard to articulate. You need to go to the select board meeting, go to a town meeting, get a garage added to your house without a legal contract, and have it come out better than if you'd assigned any pieces of paper. And then you know why Vermont is beautiful. People, we don't have a view, but every time I drive down the road, it's a $50,000 view.
Yeah. So why the Senate and why now?
Well, I looked around at some of the different public offices that were available, the Arts Commission, the Arts Council of Windham County, because I also paint. Looked at the town reps, the select board, and I found out that they were doing everything I would do if I were them. When I started looking at the Senate, I thought that Windham County was not getting its share of the resources. I didn't like some of the policies that were affecting Windham County, and even worse, the policies that are affecting rural Vermont. Rural Vermont is why I'm here, even though I have a residence in Brattleboro. It's rural Vermont that is attractive to me and all the visitors, and most of the people who live here live in rural areas. And I did not see that kind of support and resources. And I said, well, how do I change that? Reps are doing okay. not going to be the governor all of a sudden. That's not my plan ever. I'll let you know. But I didn't feel that the Senate was focusing on Windham County. I think it had other things it wanted to focus on.
So if you were elected, what policies would you like to see put in place to help rural Vermont? Or policies that exist now that you would like to change? It could go either way.
Big list.
Okay.
Yes. One, we'll start with
Give us with your top three.
Yes, well, the top three. How about the top five?
Okay, top five. We
Thanks.
can do that.
Economic development. And how do you get economic development? These are subcategories. You need early childhood childcare. My daughter would normally spend $24,000 a year on childcare. So if she made $40,000 a year, she's working for something like $1.25 an hour in order to leave her children somewhere else. There's not enough childcare in Windham County. There's several organizations that are promoting it. Winston Prouty, Chloe Leary. I'm on a task force for childcare task force. There's not enough, and it's not affordable. No one is going to move here and earn a fair wage, regardless of the amount of job openings, if they have nowhere to bring their children. They're not leaving their mother and their niece and their aunt and from some other state in order to come to Vermont and not have somewhere to bring their children. It's a non-starter. Second non-starter for that generation that we'd like to attract is internet, broadband, high-speed broadband internet and cell phones. My daughter never leaves home without it, and none of her friends do. And actually, all three of my kids. I'm hesitant to say that my grandson now has a cell phone for emergencies. It wouldn't be my choice, but that's an example.
Yeah.
No one is coming here unless they have clean air, clean water, and high-speed internet. Two people on the same street have Netflix on it. Neither one of them is receiving it. $10,000 to move to Vermont to work from home. Well, that's fine for Burlington and Montpelier. It's irrelevant for the majority of Vermont. We have worse cell phone coverage than Nairobi, Africa.
I have heard that, yes.
The third thing is energy conservation. You want to make housing more affordable? Well, make the housing more affordable. Not just the rent, but the cost of operating the housing and the taxes you pay in your utility bill, which may or may not be increasing depending.
Right.
Many of these things are within the purview of the Public Utility Commission, and they are not being done. And they could be. They're either not paying attention, or the laws that require them to do it or don't exist, or the laws that allow them to do it are being ignored, and they shouldn't be.
And is there any existing legislation that you would like to change that you feel is unfair to rural areas?
Two mainly. One is the notorious Act 46. I am a giant opponent of that. I think it's a 19th century solution to a 21st century problem. Made sense 100 years ago to corral the factory workers into a central location to improve their efficiency. That is not a reason to corral children into a central education facility. On one hand, the state's offering $10,000 to a work at home program, yet the resources to allow a child to research a project at home on Google or something don't exist. The left hand and the right hand don't know what they're doing. My 4-year-old grandson hears the adults, discussing things. He says, "Butson, why don't you just Google it?" And it's become a verb for him.
Yes.
4 years old.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if he's in rural Vermont, you don't have that. You don't even have that cuteness.
Right.
And it's wrong. Another problem with it is it sucks the intelligentsia out of rural Vermont. Not just the children, but families who decide, oh, we need to live closer to school because I'm not letting them go, I don't want them to go on the bus, so I take this other job over here closer to school. The teachers eventually migrate to the centralized school, the staff, the coaches. Now, who's left in rural Vermont outside of these consolidated schoolhouses to run the select board, the volunteer fire department, the planning commission? Like the town reps, 12,000 voters or citizens in Vermont and Brattleboro, and they can't get a full slate of 140. Mm-hmm. It's the same in the Arts Commission. It's the same in every small town. Mm. Who's going to step up this year and put in their time? It's no longer an honor. Mm-hmm. Correct that. It's always been an honor, but now it's becoming an obligation for your turn to step up. Mm-hmm. Well, I did it 7 years, and I took 2 years off. Well, can you come back? Because there's no one else, and that will only get worse. The other thing is the Vermont Clean Water Act.
Okay.
That sounds apple pie, American flag. It sounds wonderful. Mm-hmm. It's a one-size-fits-all policy, and my recollection is halfway decent. It's $325 million and has no state, no local representatives in any of the decision making. It requires small towns to put ditches at the side of the road, 5 feet wide, put trap rock in them so that within 100 feet of any kind of vernal pool. Mm-hmm. Now, a vernal pool, I have to say I kind of have a vernal pool in my basement, but any kind of vernal pool, which is defined by the type of soil. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. So you don't want sediment to run into the waterways, except every year you have to dig out that trap rock. The town has to dig out that trap rock, wash it, and put it back. Now, the state of Vermont reimburses towns for the trap rock, the digging, 80%. Mm-hmm. That other 20% is enough to double small town budgets because it is extensive. And I won't name the town because probably don't want to be named. They did something like 6% of what was required. Mm-hmm. It cost them $17,000, and their whole town budget is somewhere in the $500,000 range. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't include the paperwork and the back office skills. That's done by the road commissioner and whoever else is left in town when the schools move.
Right. So, Wayne, how do you differentiate yourself from the two incumbent senators from Windham County, Jeanette White and Becca Ballant?
Well, I think we're all very, very sincere and dedicated Democrats. Our goal is to have a Democratic majority in the Senate and a Democratic governor so that the things that need to be done for Vermont can get done for Vermont. One of the ways that we're different is that I am not accepting any campaign contributions. No public financing, doesn't exist, but no PAC money, no money from out of state. I am self-funded. I make my own signs, and I run my own website. Wait, that's called Facebook, and it's free. I have these clever little ST buttons, which stand for Estey, and I think I've spent $179 besides the software that I need for Vermont Democratic Voter Party stuff. I would be just as careful with the money that I'm spending on Vermonters' behalf, the tax money. Let me see, how else do we different? I will answer every question that's asked, no matter how awkward, no matter how divisive or cutting it might be. And there are a lot of them. And I'm not going to dodge them. There are certain questions that in Brattleboro, they're essential to answer one way, and outside of Brattleboro, they're essential to answer the exact opposite way. I'm going to tell you what I think, and let the chips fall where they may. And no one's necessarily going to agree with everything. Hopefully, they'll recognize that I'm a mixed bag in most of the things. That's all I can count on. But there's no studying the issue or thinking about it. But I'm also willing to get smarter from listening. I have certainly mitigated and moderated several positions I thought I would never change because I learned more.
Right.
And
for example?
Gun control.
Okay.
Let's go there.
Okay.
My grandkids live about 20 miles or so from Sandy Hook. Frightening. The fellow that sat next to me at work, his brother was shot and 8 employees were killed at the Hartford distributor shooting, workplace. Woman who was worked in the commissioner's office, survived a lottery shooting in my town. That's my bona fides for being pro-gun control until I talk to some people who actually own and use guns.
Okay.
And I haven't changed. I still have those visceral feelings, but I've looked at the recent legislation, and most of it is just a feel-good, annoying kind of legislation. For example, magazine size. The mass murderers have used cars to drive into crowds. Would it make any difference if you limited the gas tank to 10 gallons? No. 21 to buy a gun. I don't know where 21 comes, because it comes with no psychological, sociological basis. Cognitive abilities in young people develop around 25. No one's suggesting 25. So what is the difference between, it's that when you go to Walmart and you buy a gun, it only comes with a receipt. Most Vermont gun owners got their gun from their grandpa, their uncle, their father as a birthday present in the 10th grade. And you know what it came with? It came with a responsible, loving, caring adult, not just a receipt. And that's the difference. And so saying you can't buy a gun until you're 21, so you're gifted a gun. And some of the gun legislation makes sense. Make sure that people who are not capable of conscious reasoning and rationalization don't buy guns, background checks. Waiting periods, annoying, but I think worthwhile in the sense that most gun deaths are suicides or domestic disputes or what in the law that we call crimes of passion. That passion can run hot, and that desperation for suicide can be intense from moment to moment. If somebody had a few days, one day to think about it,
Right.
maybe it wouldn't happen.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So there's some good pieces, but most of them were placating the supporters or annoying someone else who can't see it. Assault weapons, there's no fully automatic weapons legally for sale. They're all semi-automatics, except musket loaders or something. Revolvers are semi-automatic. Assault-style weapons, whatever that means. Should we ban red cars because they're more likely to be speeding? Because they look scary, we should ban them? Well, they're supposed to look scary. again, I consider those things, some have passed, some are proposed, as feel good, pandering to the base.
Let's talk a little bit. We were talking before the show about your degree in economics and how you worked as an economist for some time. Windham County's working on the whole economic development thing, trying to build up the whole economy. Now it's joined with Bennington County to create a full joint vision or a regional SEDS. What are some of your thoughts on economic development? What would you do in Windham County to bolster the economy?
We're back at early childhood education, cell service, and high-speed internet. You provide the government and energy conservation, government-provided energy conservation, not utility-provided, because that's a whole nother error. You provide that, and you will see people move here. Young people will want to be here for the same reasons that we all want to be here. They can't move here without childcare. They can't move here without clean water, clean air, and cell coverage, because that is as a necessity as any other thing they own. When they come here, they will pay taxes. And even if taxes are not raised, the grand list, there will be more people to share in that burden. And here's a politician's promise: taxes will be reduced. I will reduce taxes. Well, not exactly, but your share of the taxes. Same with energy conservation. If the government were sponsoring energy conservation, low cost, no cost energy conservation, weather stripping, insulation, caulking, these things pay for themselves within months. I know. I designed these programs when I worked for Northeast Utilities, my very first economic career, the benefit cost of different kinds of conservation measures. Months they pay for themselves. And when you use one less unit of energy, you are 1 unit closer to being 90% by 2050. If you do not change the denominator in that equation, 90 to 100, you get 90. You need 100 units, you're providing 90 by renewables, you're at 90%. The next day, you're short, because energy growth demand is 4% a year. So you're short by 4% the very next year, unless you're adding more and more windmills and solar and hydro. In fact, not that I'm not supportive of those things, there is, if you cover every square foot of Vermont surface with solar panels at 3 times their current efficiency, assuming they get better, and there's no guarantee of that, you will replace 1.5 nuclear plant equivalents. New England uses 25 nuclear plant equivalents. There is no way to replace Vermont's energy needs with renewables. It has to be use less energy.
What about the gap between wages and cost of living? For a lot of people, they're just not earning enough to keep up with the cost of living.
Well, we have these catchphrases. Fair wage. Yes, I support fair wage and minimum wage. Tax the rich, reverse income taxes, all those things. The devil's in the detail. You're not going to get tax revenue out of. You're not going to get blood out of a rock. And so there's only people with money are the only source of tax revenue. Does the government spend it wisely? Does it make sure that it's spent wisely? And even making sure it's spent wisely costs tax money. Do you spend $1 to make sure you didn't waste, spend 99 cents to make sure you didn't waste a penny? Some of the things I've seen in Vermont that are unusual is no negotiating on real estate conveyance, real estate taxes, 6% commission. Connecticut, any other place I've lived, that's negotiable. Rent, 3 months. First, last, and security. This is the only place I've ever seen such a thing. Why? Even a modest apartment, $800, that's $2,400. How do you get that big down payment on just to rent? You change that and you see the homeless. I mean, I talk to a lot of homeless. I live right down on Main Street, and it's the golden, it's a holy grail. Oh, I'm only $400 away from having my $2,000 for first lesson. And they just never seem to get there because something happens.
So we're just about out of time. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find more information?
Well, I have my entire internet presence on Facebook. It's WayneVernon.Estey.5. I don't know where that 5 comes from, but that's the number they've given me. I have written several articles. If you have any internet access or old copies of the Reformer, Burlington Free Press, you might find those since March when I have been speaking out. I'm a retired attorney. I'm a retired economist. I'm soon to be a retired zoning officer, but I am not done serving the public. And I need your votes. I'm not littering the highways with my signs. I am not mailing things to you. I'm not robo-calling anybody. You might get a call from me personally. You'll think it's a robo-call because I have such a mellifluous voice. That's about it. I'm spending my own money. I'm spending it carefully. And I am ready to serve the people in the state that I intend to stay here for the rest of my life and enjoy the fruits of whatever victories I can get in the legislature for us all.
Wayne Vernon Estey, thank you for joining us today, and good luck in the primary.
Well, thank you very much. It really was a pleasure. Almost like talking over the table.
I know, right?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?